Hello everybody, this is Amy from Chateau de Rosieres, and today I'm going to answer your questions about Marc's accident. You're a gruesome lot and you all seem to want to know exactly what happened, and now we've got some distance from it, I can tell you. Marc himself is a bit tired today and in fact in general still recovering, so I'm going to be doing the talking. I also do a pretty good dramatic retelling of it, whereas Marc's a little bit more prosaic. After I've finished telling you all about the accident, I'm going to be showing you what the next stage of our massive chateau restoration project is, because we are now moved into the coach house behind me. And a lot of people have been wondering why we moved in there, because it's now about 2 years since I explained it all. So I'll be taking you around the chateau and showing you what we're going to be getting up to. So picture the scene. It's a Friday morning. We're expecting the class of Clement to turn up here because they're coming for a visit, and we wanted to move the cows to where they could see. And I'm just down behind the coach house, and we wanted the cows to be in this one of their fields so that their kids could see them. Marc walked them up from one of the other places, and I was in the field with them. I think I was brushing Praline, and I suddenly heard him just yelling and yelling, and I couldn't work out what he was doing. And sometimes he gets grumpy about something, so I thought initially it was just him getting grumpy about something. But eventually I heard him yelling, "Call the pompiers," who are the firemen, who are the ones that come for in place of an ambulance as well here. So of course I ran from right over the other side of this field up here, and by that time he had taken his shirt off and had tied it around his leg as a tourniquet. What I found out later was he had been trying to plug in, do something to do with the electricity for the cows, and he'd leant over here to get something and slipped and gashed his leg open on this. And this is the earth that was in there. It'd been put in a little bit too hard, and Marc had been meaning to take it out, but he couldn't get it out without the digger and hadn't brought the digger over. But he slipped on there, and there's been a lot of speculation as to whether he should have been wearing safety boots, but actually it was above a safety boot, and it cut open almost the length of his leg very, very deeply. But I didn't know what had happened at this point, so all that happened was I ran up here. I was trying to get both of our phones working, because we're kind of in the forest here as well, you know, we're hidden from the main chateau, we're behind a wall. He sort of collapsed on the ground here. It was a storm. It wasn't unlike this kind of weather. It was on-off raining. There were rumbles of thunder. We had Juliette with us just around the corner playing in her little house, who kept coming round. And all I could see, he kept telling me to put pressure on his leg. And so I didn't know if there was a bone sticking out of it or what was going on, if he'd broken it. I was absolutely terrified. I mean, I've been in some pretty difficult situations medically before with other people, and I've been okay, but this time I think I thought he was going to die. He'd gone completely white and he was starting to lose consciousness, and I was trying to speak to the pompiers in French, and my French just totally deserted me. And I gave him the phone to keep him awake and to keep talking to them, and then they just weren't really coming. And I started to panic, and I called our friend who's a doctor in the village who speaks English, and I was just like yelling at him as well. And then Marc was being his normal stoic self and saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's fine, the pompiers are coming." And I'm seeing him lolling back, and he's lying on this hard floor with stones, and there's blood everywhere, and trying to keep it together because Juliette kept coming through as well to see what was going on. There was this really intense period of time, weirdly intense and weirdly peaceful, after we'd finished talking with everybody and we were just waiting. And we'd had to I was calling a neighbour to tell them to direct the pompiers here, because we were hidden behind a wall on the edge of the forest. And then we were just kind of, Marc's lying here and I'm just gripping his leg, and it's raining and there's rumblings of thunder and he's going paler and paler, and we just kind of, it makes me feel quite dizzy just to sit here again like that. It was hard, feeling quite so powerless. And it took about half an hour for the pompiers to get to us. They're amazing as soon as they arrived, and they said we'd done the right thing keeping the compression on, because we didn't know if he'd cut through an artery or not. And they elevated his foot up on this chair. I got the chair and he put it up there, and they cleaned it out at the point, and it was several centimetres deep and several centimetres wide. I've never seen anything like it. I sent it, he took a photo later on and sent it to my brother, who's a doctor, and a friend of ours from Chateau de Bourneau, Erin, who's a doctor, and they both said it was quite impressive. But I didn't know what was going on. They didn't seem to know how bad it was. They needed to clean it and make sure he was okay. And then they carried him up, stretchered him up onto the front lawn into the ambulance. And they got nurses coming up from around the area as well. So we had quite a few pompiers and then some nurses as well. And then they had to wait for direction from a doctor to decide which hospital to take him to. I was trying to keep it together for Juliette at this point, and I was trying to call the teacher for the class trip, and she said, "Oh well, the weather's so bad; it's pouring with rain. We won't go anyway. We'll postpone it till another time." And so I thought, oh no, now I've got to go and get Clement a picnic, because he was just going to eat here with us with all the kids in their picnic, and it's so prosaic, such prosaic things you end up just occupying yourself with when somebody you love is in an ambulance and not in a great way. And he lost so much blood and was in such low blood pressure, they put him on a drip straight away, took him to the hospital, and they sort of operated on him under an anaesthetic to stitch some stuff up inside and then outside, and kept him in overnight for observation. Meanwhile, back at Rosieres, I was frantically trying to pack up a picnic. And I don't know if any of you have been in shock before, but I was properly in shock, and I could not coordinate myself in order to make a picnic. It's the simplest of things. I just couldn't put food together in a bag. And I was trying to work out where they were as well. And then all of a sudden, and so I couldn't get hold of them. So I drove off down the driveway, and I met them on the driveway, and they'd gone for a walk, and the weather had held, so they just carried on. So they were appearing here, and I hadn't finished preparing. So there was a total mess. There was like blood stains everywhere. Clement didn't know anything about it, and he was with his class. And there was just, in the coach house where we were going to be receiving them, there was just chaos, because I was on the last minute clearing it up as it was. I had just about enough time. And so they said, we don't have to come, don't worry about it. And I went, no, Clement's been looking forward to this for ages. And so I went ahead with the class trip, which was pretty incredible, really, I think. But we had a really nice time, and the kids had something to take their minds off things. And then we discovered it was the weekend we were taking the class mascot, and we had to do a weekend of doing photos with the class mascot, doing activities. And I think it's the only weekend this year that the class mascot got to go to the hospital to pick up father. So we went to pick him up on the Saturday morning, and he had crutches, and he's been getting around with crutches, and he's had a nurse coming in to change dressings. And it's just really difficult. He can't stand still. He has to either walk or lie down with his leg in the air. And that has been quite difficult, because we didn't have anybody in for that week. We had no Margot, we had nobody. I'm not going to lie, that was one of the hardest weeks of my life. I think it was a big wake-up call. I'm not sure what it woke me up for, but it was terrifying and shaken. We were very shaken, and it's taken a while to get over emotionally as well. For me, more than Marc. Marc seemed to bounce back absolutely fine, but for me, I sort of saw my world slipping away for a little while, and that was quite difficult. And then just spending that night alone with the kids here, it felt very odd. He came back from hospital saying it felt like he'd been on holiday. So I think that says we really needed to have a bit of a rest. And Marc got better a lot quicker than I expected, although it's now a couple of weeks later and I'm not sure he's as well as he thought. It looks like it might be reinfected. So I'm trying to help him with any jobs on the ground. So for example, I've been doing some grouting for him today, which we'll see over on our Lost Gardens of Chateau de Rosieres channel, where we're restoring a fabulous old greenhouse. Please subscribe. But yeah, we've been pretty busy, but it could have been so much worse, so much worse. I don't know how he got away with it, actually. He seemed to miss everything of importance, apart from one tendon, and I don't think there's going to be any permanent damage. If we can just convince him to stay clean and dry and rested, then he should be all right. One of the difficult things after the accident was that we had half moved into the coach house. So half of our stuff was up in the chateau still and half of it was down here, which meant that whilst I was looking after all of the farm and the children and Marc, I was having to run back and forth for half the things we needed. But the amazing thing was being in here, because we were all able to be in one big room and Marc could stretch his leg out on the sofa and sit with the kids, and we've really loved existing down here for the last couple of weeks. And once Marc gets better, it's going to be time for us to start getting on with the work in the main chateau, because that's why we moved down here. I keep getting messages from people saying, why are you moving out again? And it's completely because we need to do major works in the chateau and we don't want to be living in a building site with two young kids. It's not good for them and it's not good for my sanity. But it's dust and breaking stuff, and we just wanted to have a nice living environment. So I'm going to take you on a little tour and show you some of the big things we've got planned up there. When we bought the Chateau de Rosieres in 2016, we were really impressed with the state it was in. It was superficially very nice. It just lacked certain amenities that we would need in order to have other people here, basically. So if we wanted to make it into a business, if we wanted to host retreats here, if we wanted to have a family, there was 1.5 bathrooms, and there were all sorts of structural problems to do with the kitchen that we wanted to put right. And we always got into this because we wanted to live in a historic building and we wanted to restore it as well. And there was a lot of work done in the 1970s here that we didn't love, and we wanted to roll back to another time period. And it's always very difficult with a very old building like this, which is over 600 years old, to know which time period to go back to, and also to put a value on particular time periods over the others. And we've done a full chateau tour for you before, over all of the Advent period, I think, at Christmas. So you've seen every single room. And we've spoken a lot about how we're focusing on the 18th century time here, because we feel like that was its heyday and that's where there was beauty. But there is also a 19th century part that we couldn't roll back if we wanted to, because it was fairly big structural work, and we will preserve that as well, but it's a relatively small part of it. So I'm sitting on the staircase because I want to start with this. I'm going to talk you through today just a few of the things we'll be starting with here. And they include both the structural works for convenience and the restoration work. So that's our kind of two reasons for doing major works here. One of them is this floor. Now these tiles cover the whole entrance and all up the stairs, and they are 20th century, 1970s mass-produced tiles. And we know from people who used to live here that there were beautiful big old flagstones here all through the entrance area, and we had always held out hope that they had kept them underneath and just tiled over the top. Sadly, when we had our plumbing disaster recently and had to dig through it, we found that that wasn't the case. But we do still want to take these up, and we do still have some suspicions that under the staircase one there could be good stones. We know there's none in the entrance hall, but they could be on the staircase. I've been joined by my able helpers, so I'll be taking them with me for the next bit of the tour. Who knows how long they'll join me for. One of the things I cannot wait to get on with is this corridor. So this is in between our big bedroom and the bathroom and all sorts of other parts. In the 1970s, probably the 1970s, they changed the doors to be invisible doors. In other parts of the chateau that weren't touched then, further up, they had these beautiful ornate doors on top of where the cupboards were, so they were showing off the cupboards. And they also put this sort of Hessian material as a wallpaper, and it is very dark and really horrible. I'm sorry. A few people have mentioned they like it, but it's like old sacking on the walls and it's so dingy. Really, really, really dislike this. My treat for when we've moved fully into the coach house is going to be ripping this whole lot off. And you're going to see me in that video the happiest I've been in a long time, because this corridor could be so beautiful and yet it's dark and dingy and awful, and it's still got all the beautiful panelling from the 19th century, this bit, that we want to reveal, and we just don't know what we're going to find behind it. Could be beautiful. I've got a few things to show you here in the master bedroom. This is one of the ones that was done up in the 19th century with beautiful high ceilings and a plafond de la Française and wood panelling everywhere. It's where we try to put guests when they come, if we're not sleeping in it ourselves. And it's so close to perfection in here, but we need to rehang the wall hangings that we had painted for us, because we hung them in a hurry for the TV show. We need to sort out the bathroom, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But here, I want to show you the windows. When we bought the chateau, the previous owners, who only had it for a few years, had invested in double glazed windows for several floors, but not all of them. And actually it was the most used rooms that didn't have double glazing in, like this one. And it's not just a problem for the cold, but it's a problem for water. Last night we had an almighty storm and this window blew open with the force of the wind. And even when it doesn't blow open, when we have a storm from the front, I don't know if you can still see, it's still damp, but the water flows through the window and onto the windowsill and down onto the floor. And so every time there's a storm, we have to put towels out here. And this isn't the only room that there's a problem in. There's several significant rooms with lots of windows that have very problematic windows and that lose a huge amount of heat. Now, that's not a simple process, because if you were to just replace the windows in the frames, you would cut them down the side and build new frames to put in. And this is what the previous owners did in some of the other rooms. They're lovely people. I love them a lot. We stayed friends with them, but I don't agree with what they did in the windows. Because when you put in a new frame, if you've just cut the frame out instead of taking the whole lot apart and recessing them to where they originally were, is you lose light, because you have to have a wider frame. So you get a wider frame, and then they also put smaller panes of glass in all of them, so you lose light from that. And light is so important to us. So we're working with a local woodworker, local window maker, who just done all of our stuff before, to do this job properly. And now we're doing it properly on the windows in the rooms where we need a lot of light and where we have big windows. We may, for cost's sake, have to compromise in other rooms. But you can imagine one reason we might need to leave the chateau in order to stay somewhere else whilst we're doing work like this is because otherwise we're going to be living with gaping holes in the windows, with bats and all manner of things coming in. And it's going to take a while because they're going to have to get right into the walls to take out all of the original woodwork, carefully remove the wood paneling so that that doesn't get damaged, and then rebuild it from the walls. And that's got to happen in quite a few rooms. One of the finishing touches we need to do as well is in this bathroom. It is now usable, but only the sinks and the toilets, because I never finished the tiling for the shower and we never filled in the roof because we still had other pipes to put through and to organise. So we really need to get on with this because it's one of those bits of the chateau where we worked really, really hard on it for the TV show, but it just wasn't the right time to finish it then. We needed to prioritise moving into the coach house and having children. But I'm really looking forward to getting back stuck into this, especially my tile project, and I'll be showing you a bit more about that in a couple of weeks' time. That was really just a flavour of what we have to do in the main chateau. It's an example of why we can't be living in it whilst we're doing the work. There is so much more to show you. And over the coming weeks, we're going to be showing you both what we have to do and getting stuck into some of the jobs, especially the ones I've been telling you about today. Next week, we're going to be showing you a major project that we did last year that was in the main chateau that we didn't show you since then because we were working on the coach house and it would have all got a bit muddled up. But it's the first room that I think we've pretty much finished now, and we're extremely proud of it. I'm really looking forward to showing you that. So thank you for watching today. Please don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and to subscribe to our channel. It really helps. And also to go and have a look at us over on the Lost Gardens of Chateau de Rosieres and subscribe there as well, because there's so much going on there. You'll need to bear with us a little bit in the coming weeks because I'm having to pick up a lot more of the work now and help Marc out, which means that we can't film always on both channels. But we'll make sure we keep you updated. And otherwise, our videos will be coming out regularly on Saturday night, 9:30 p.m. French time for this channel and 10 p.m. French time on our other channel. So keep an eye out for us. And thanks again for watching.